The internet is vast and full of mysteries, some more obscure than others. Here's one that dates as far back as the 1970s that has left dedicated researchers scratching their heads for nearly 40 years. In 1994, Brian Hance left Columbus, Ohio to attend the University of Arizona and major in journalism. His freshman year was going according to plan until on May 1st of 1995, he came across something rather curious in the Arizona Daily Wildcat. This was the student-ran campus newspaper. What he saw was his first Mayday page. At the time, he was intrigued but simply thought it was an odd advertisement for some type of university club or organization. The image is definitely odd and at first glance seems completely incoherent, but the truth is, it's actually a puzzle. The Mayday Mystery is an ongoing collection of extremely cryptic articles that are added to the University of Arizona's on-campus newspaper every year on May 1st without failure since sometime in the 70s. There is also extensive but odd communication over email between Brian, an anonymous individual, and something called the Orphanage. 1 year later, on May 1st, 1996, Brian saw his second Mayday page. This is when he began to realize that something was up. Although intrigued, he decided not to research the bizarre coded article. It wasn't until 1997 when he had began working for the Daily Wildcat as the webmaster and saw his third page. This is when he decided it was finally time to begin studying this mystery. After some weeks of vigorously tracking down leads, studying the papers, and enlisting help, Brian came to some conclusions. The Mayday mystery had obscure roots tracing back to the 1970s. Whoever was behind it was likely wealthy due to the cost of purchasing an entire page in the Daily Wildcat, and the game was likely to continue. After a year, Brian's friend, who goes by Repub Girl, was assisting him with studying the mystery. She was contacted by the person who was supposedly behind the pages. There are some things that stand out in this email in particular. The seeming disdain for the American education system, the mention of a prize, what appears to be pity that the writer has for Brian not understanding elements of the pages, and eschatology. The writer mentions that Brian does not understand the immensity of the reward, and that he misconstrues the ads as a game when they are not, but he insists that Brian seems sincere. He seems amused at the fact that some seem to see the ads as eschatological in nature, but then states maybe they are right, and that Brian should be informed. Eschatology is the theological study concerned with the ultimate destiny of humanity, or in simpler terms, the end of the world. Something else that is very strange upon reviewing this email is the grammar and style of writing. Occasionally, they'll capitalize the first letter of a word without having started a new sentence. Brian, or Mr. Hance as he is referred to in the email, is never once capitalized, and there are numerous spelling and grammatical errors littered throughout. The writer specifically states, "Sorry this can't be written better, I do the best with what I have," which is an odd statement to make. This makes me think that there are extenuating circumstances that we are not aware of, or that the writer was intentionally trying to obfuscate the manner in which they write because they believe it could be an identifying factor. So, breaking down this email, we can come to some basic conclusions. This isn't a game and is supposed to have a greater meaning. Review of the previous issues or papers is needed for full understanding. There are some type of meetings being held. Significant disdain is had for the American education system, and there is an end, but not one that you would expect. Interestingly, Brian was not actually supposed to see this email, as it was intended for Repub Girl's eyes only. However, the writer of the email became aware of this fact and sent another email a day later, this time addressed to Brian. As you can see, this email is significantly shorter and well written. It reads, "It was previously deemed advisable to run our first message to you through a translating program. Render the plain text largely case insensitive, and then email the results to several of your correspondents. The plan was evidently a poor one, as your correspondents were sufficiently obtuse that they could not interpret what they received. This message is, in contrast, both succinctly blunt and has been reviewed by a native speaker of English. The day you see the door, you will be welcomed inside." This clarifies that the prior email to Repub Girl was likely written in another language, ran through a basic translating tool, and attempted to be made case insensitive, which explains the odd grammar, spelling errors, and weird use of capitalizations. Most notably, however, this email is signed as The Orphanage, and ends with the quote, "Male narrando fabula deprevatur," which roughly translates to badly corrupted by telling the story. Another key element in this email is the statement that the day you can say the door, you'll be welcomed inside. Does this mean that one can become a member of the so-called orphanage? Going through these emails and studying the pages, and based on the remarks made on Brian's reliance on the www in the first email, it is clear that whoever is behind these seems to harbor a type of hatred towards the internet. Brian brings up an interesting point in his updates during the year of 1999 and states that what kind of person creates an elaborate intertwined puzzle that seems to combine prophecy, madness, manifestos, and mathematics, but looks so poorly upon those who use the internet to help decipher the contents? He goes further to state that the negative attitude that is being taken towards the methods used in deciphering these clues sheds light on the mindset of the person behind all of this. These pages and communications bring many questions to mind, such as, who is behind them? What do they ultimately mean? Does the orphanage have more than one member? If so, how were they recruited? What is the orphanage trying to accomplish? Why is there such an overarching focus on prominent historical Protestants? I don't know the answers to these questions, and even with 30-something years of pages to decipher, it doesn't seem that anybody else does either. And if they do, they haven't come forth to prove it. However, the orphanage insists there is meaning, all of the pages are connected, and that there is an end. There are numerous popular theories regarding the Mayday Mysteries. Many people that have devoted time to these pages have realized that there are numerous trends and patterns. However, the trends and patterns aren't in the cleverness of the cryptography or the ciphering, but rather just the strange and disjointedness. It starts to seem that obfuscation itself is actually the point of all of this, not an actual message being obfuscated. Or rather, it's a puzzle just to be a puzzle. Another theory is that this is an artistic outlet of sorts, with the goal of getting younger generations into studying topics such as numerology, religion, history, and science by using the mystery to convince them to try and solve the puzzle. However, the material in the ads is very much from a radical Protestant perspective and very anti-Catholic, and has consistently been so ever since they popped up. In the end, everyone pretty much agrees that the person behind these is very intelligent, but very likely unstable. However, these mysteries have provided countless hours of entertainment and investigative practice to cyber sleuths due to the amount of effort that someone put into continuing this for almost 40 years. Many insist, due to that same effort, that there very likely is a reward at the end of this, but only if one could decipher the madness. My goal for this video was not to solve these questions for you, but by analyzing it, I've hopefully stirred your interest and imagination, and you'll look into the mystery yourself. There is thousands of hours worth of archived material to dissect in regards to these mysteries, and I hope you will have a look for yourself. Thank you for watching, and please comment below if there are other mysteries you would like me to discuss. Good night.